Hi, my name is John Vetrich, and this is a series of videos we're going to do on the production of a application intended for the Windows 7 phone. Of course, it's written in Silverlight, so there's nothing to restrict it only to the Windows 7 phone, except for the last two chapters, which are going to be on doing push notifications. So just bear in mind that the first three of these videos apply whether to any version of Silverlight, whether in the browser or on the in the phone. And we're just going to be going through building up this application that shows some of the advanced topics that we discussed in the introductory video. First of all, let's just take you on a tour of the application. As I said, this is a stock quoting application. It's going to go off to Yahoo Finance, and it's going to retrieve the values for the symbols which we enter. For instance, we enter Microsoft, and the last trade, with the market was closed now, so at 4 o'clock yesterday, Microsoft was at 24.53. And at the plus sign, we can give more details on the stock. This runs through an animation. Hit the minus sign, we hide that information. Now, if we hit anywhere else in the row, we're taken to a view where we can set an alert target. Here we can say the price is greater than or less than the input value. And let's say it's Microsoft, so let's go if it's greater than $26. I want to be alerted. Hit the accept, and then this is added to a configuration file. And whenever we hit the back button here, that information is going to be sent to our associated service. This is a WCF service running on a Windows host. And because our quote client has gone into the background, yet that server is still running, and if an alert happens, we're going to be notified through a tile notification. So this is the application that we're going to build up. So let's take a look at the architecture of this application. As I said, this applies to Silverlight in general. We have a background thread, and the reason we want to have a background thread is that we're going to be making a lot of these web client calls off to Yahoo. And in doing so, we do not want to tie up the UI thread. So we have a timer which is going to be issuing our web client calls. And by definition, being on a timer means that we're going to operate on a thread from the thread pool. And a request, and that request is then going to be made to Yahoo, and Yahoo is going to return response as a common delimiter file. Now remember, all this is happening on this background thread. We then, in the background thread, cannot update the UI. So we have to be able to communicate back to our UI thread. And this is where I use messaging from the MVVM Lite package from Galasoft. And we'll go into that in more detail soon. And then these symbols are going to flow back into our view model, where they're going to be bound to our quote domain objects. And there the setters are going to cause the data binding to occur, and we're going to see the changes to our user experience if the market was open. Hi, my name is John Vetrich, and this is a series of videos we're going to do on the production of a application intended for the Windows 7 phone. Of course, it's written in Silverlight, so there's nothing to restrict it only to the Windows 7 phone, except for the last two chapters, which are going to be on doing push notifications. So just bear in mind that the first three of these videos apply whether to any version of Silverlight, whether in the browser or on the in the phone. And we're just going to be going through building up this application that shows some of the advanced topics that we discussed in the introductory video. First of all, let's just take you on a tour of the application. As I said, this is a stock quoting application. It's going to go off to Yahoo Finance, and it's going to retrieve the values for the symbols which we enter. For instance, we enter Microsoft, and the last trade, the market was closed now, so at 4 o'clock yesterday, Microsoft was at 24.53. And if the plus sign, we can give more details on the stock. This runs through an animation. Hit the minus sign, we hide that information. Now, if we hit anywhere else in the row, we're taken to a view where we can set an alert target. Here we can say the price is greater than or less than the input value. And let's say it's Microsoft, so let's go if it's greater than $26. I want to be alerted. Hit the accept, and then this is added to a configuration file. And whenever we hit the back button here, that information is going to be sent to our associated service. This is a WCF service running on a Windows host. And because our quote client has gone into the background, yet that server is still running, and if an alert happens, we're going to be notified through a tile notification. So this is the application that we're going to build up. So out of the box, we've got a pretty good looking application. However, now it's time to start customizing it for the look and feel that we want for this stock application. The first thing we're going to do here is we're going to add our domain object, which will be our quote. So we just go into the add class, and here we'll just change the default name to quote so it's a little more meaningful. Now, instead of watching me type, I'm just going to cut and paste into the code. And let's take a quick tour here. The quote is going to extend the iNotify property changed. And this is a critical interface for our data binding to occur, because we're going to have to implement the property changed method. And of course, you have to right-click this to resolve it using system.componentModel. And this is going to add the system.componentModel will be added to the file. Now notice we're not using automatic properties, which are a nice feature in C#. We can't, because here our setter becomes critical, because we want to call this raise property changed. And if we look at the definition of raise property changed, this is a method we had to implement for the interface, and we're calling the property change method, which is going to bind any change made to our domain property will be changed in the user experience. And if we made this two-way, then whatever change occurred in the user experience would change in the domain. So now we're going to look at making some changes to our view model to reflect our model, which is, of course, this quote object. First, we have to understand what code has been generated for us in regard to this view model. If we look in the app.xaml.cs file, we will see that they have generated a static view model, and they've instantiated a property. So whenever the getter is called, that view model is going to be instantiated. And this is they use this down in the main page.xaml.cs. In the constructor, the data context is being set to that app view model. So they've done a lot of the work for us. So now we have to go over to our view model, and we're going to customize it to the look we want. The first thing I do is I'm going to add an observable collection of quotes, and we're going to call this the quote list. Now, this is what we're going to bind to the XAML, and our XAML now looks like, just a quick tour here, the XAML out of the box. We're actually data binding. Here's a list box. The list box is our main UI, and the item source, which is going to be the source of these rows, the objects that are bound to the rows, is going to be bound to the items. This is, remember, out of the box. And remember, what did we set the data context to? We set it to our view model. And items is a property on that view model. And the same thing every row is going to be defined by this template. And the data template here is 2 text box. It's on a vertical stack panel. And if we look at the binding, we're binding to line 1 and line 2. Now, these are the things we want to be able to change. So we go back into our view model. We set up our quote list. Now we want to new this, so we're going to and I should note we're using observable collection here because if we're going to add anything to our list or delete it, then we want the binding to automatically occur to the associated list box, and this is all taken care of for us. Now we're starting to work with our domain object, our quote object. But we still want to be able to retain the ability of our designers being able to see sample data. So the next thing we go into is change the sample data, and we go into our main view model sample data.xaml file. And in here, if we just, this is all XAML, but the type converter is going to take and convert this XAML is going to be converted into a quote object. So if we type in a dot after that main view model, it's showing that we do have a quote list property on our main view model. Now we also have to make a change to, of course, the closing XAML, and so we're now in sync. And this is, of course, giving sample data for the old. So I'm going to just take and remove this, and I happen to have some data I can just cut and paste into here, just to save me from typing. And now we have sample data for our domain objects. So if we now go back over to and look at the XAML for the main page, notice that there is nothing being shown here because we have to change our bindings. The item source in our list box is now being set up to look bound to the items, and this is what we want to change to reflect our model. So we just change this to, we're going to bind the list itself is going to be bound to our quote list, and each of the objects in my list are going to be bound to a row in this list, and that row is going to be described by a data template. That data template is being bound to the old out of the boxed object, and we're going to change the properties here so that the first text box is going to be our symbol, and it's the symbol. And notice our sample data is already being reflected in the design view, which is very nice. And we're going to make this into time. However, now we want to start to change our UI to look at the finished product. The first thing we want to address is this heading. So we're going to just add some XAML here, and we're just going to change this so that what we have here now is a horizontal stack panel, and we have the enter symbol label, and then we have an input text box in which the user is going to just add the symbol they're interested in, and then the add button. And remember, when the phone, there's a slight issue here that the phone, you want these buttons to be larger than normally would have them on a Silverlight application, because remember, there's no mouse here, and the user is going to be touching these things. So we've now added these 3 things, and normally, if this was a normal Silverlight application or phone application, we would just hit the click handler, and we would add that code would be added to the code behind page. However, here we're employing our view model pattern, and so we want to follow it, and so we want to use our commanding to fire when the button is clicked, we want to fire that to our view model, and that view results in some code and a delegate being called, and we'll call it get symbol, being called in that view model. However, there's a problem here. The version of Silverlight that exists on the phone is somewhere between 3 and 4. It does not include commanding. So that's where we have to go out and include the relays command, which is part of the MVVM Lite toolkit. So the first thing we have to do is to add the bits for relay, which is going to come out. Just going to go here to add reference, and I actually have these under recent, and I'm going to include the WP7 versions of these DLLs. And now they're added as references to our project, so I can use them. And I've got to go in here again and add some code to my view model. And again, to save some time, I'm just going to cut and paste this code. And this is going to describe what our relay command. And the again, if I right-click here, we're going to resolve this using the MVVM Lite command. And this is going to just set up a property in our view model that's going to return an iCommand interface. And this is the commanding that we need to make because we're using data binding to fire the button. Click handler is going to be attached to our view model through data binding. And notice that in the relay command itself, we're instantiating the object. We are missing, this is a delegate. We need to now describe the delegate, and the delegate is, again, I'll just grab some code here, which will save me from typing, and we're going to include this in our view model. Now this is simply going to take the input, and it's going to create a new quote object and add it to our list of quotes. But this code is this is just the plumbing that is behind this. We still have to make some changes to our XAML, and those changes I want to show those being used in Blend. So now we want to add our commanding using Blend. So the first thing we do is we go to our main page.xaml and right-click and hit the Open Expression Blend. Now we're going to be in Blend. We'll see our project, and just to save some time, I already opened that up, and we see our new look here. We have entered the symbol, and this is the Add button that we want to add the commanding to. This is a split view, so we can see on our button. This is the button handler, the example for our button, and there's much here, but this is where we want to do. And also note that, like the design view in Visual Studio, we're seeing sample data, so our graphic artists don't have to wait till runtime to see what the UI might look like with mock data. So what we want to add command into this add symbol, and we go up to the window. I want to see assets. What Galasoft has added this event to command behavior to Blend, and we just grab it and we're just dropping on the add symbol. Now, as a result, some XAML has been added, and we'll see a trigger has been actually added to the button handler. And this is half of our work is now done, and we're let's make this a little larger. And so we have our event trigger added. Now, we want to right on that event, we want to go to properties. And under properties, we want to be able to do the data binding, and we're going to bind this button is going to be bind to the get symbol command. That, remember, we put that code, the property was put into our data context, and we're going to bind it. And again, some XAML is going to be added here where we edit the command, and we're binding to our get symbol command, which is in our view model. But now we have to tell it where to find the input. And we go up to our command parameter and again hit the data binding. And this time we're going to look at the element binding, the element property. And we have to go through our layout route and to find that stack panel because the symbol, what the user types into the symbol, we want to bind that text is going to be the input into my into that delegate that we defined in the view model. And by doing this, we notice our command parameter is now set to text, and it's a text property of the element sim. And that sim is where the user enters, it's a text box, the user enters a symbol in. Notice in Blend, it's added the, it's just put gold around to show that there is data binding here. Just as a review, we're now back in Visual Studio, and this is the XAML that was added to our project by Blend. And we're using the MVVM Lite, and this is their event to command behavior. And we're just going to bind, our click event. It's just going to be bound to the get symbol command, which is the property in our view model. And we're going to pass as a parameter, we're going to pass the text property of this symbol, which is the input text box that the user enters the symbol that they want to monitor into. And just to see how that works, I'm going to go over to my view model. In the view model, we're going to set a breakpoint in the get symbol delegate. Now remember, this was wired up through this relay command right here. So when we hit the breakpoint, we should be able to run to the breakpoint. And notice that this is the other nice part here, is that we're able to use the same wonderful debugging tools that in normal Silverlight projects. We can use them in the phone emulator. We hit the add button, now we're in the get symbol delegate, and the input here is what the user typed in using the emulated keyboard. It's Microsoft, and then we just create our new symbol and add it to our list of codes. This takes us to the end of chapter 1, and then we continue on chapter 2, where we're going to continue with the refinement of this Windows 7 phone application's user experience. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and there will be 4 more in the series. Thank you.